Welcome to the Sports Umbrella, where we cover all aspects of sports, soak in all the knowledge from our guests who range from pro athletes playing up a storm to industry experts making it rain. My name's Kelly Okun, and I'm a former pro golfer and founder and CEO of Fairway to Green, an equitable sports media company. Joining us this episode, presented by GalwayPlus amidst the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Games, are two former Olympians, Shannon Bahrke and Doug Lewis. Shannon is a 3-time Olympian and 2-time medalist in freestyle skiing, and Doug is a 2-time Olympian and World Championship medalist in downhill skiing. Doug and Shannon both share their experiences from making the U.S. ski team to competing at their own Winter Games, what we can expect to see in their sports in Milan, the importance of mental training, and how they're paying it forward with today's young athletes. Shannon, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. The Olympics are upon us. How excited are you for the Winter Games this year?
So excited. So excited. I can't wait. Everybody's been working so hard. And gosh, Team USA is looking so strong in so many sports. So I am pumped.
I am a huge fan. I'll be watching it at 3:30 in the morning here at Mountain Standard Time every day. That's how freakishly excited I am. But every time the Olympics come around, I'm sure, Shannon, with you, it's just these feelings, these butterflies, these nerves, these happy memories come up, and I just relive all my experiences every time. I just love it.
Yes. And I too have a lot of emotions, right? I'm so excited for the athletes that have the opportunity. I also have a lot of jealousy because I want to be back there. I want to be doing it. So inspired as I have 2 kids now, just the inspiration that they're going to provide for my kids. So there's a lot of emotions, I want to go back and do it myself, but I can't. So I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader ever. That's it.
I love that. And as a kid who actually attended one of your Olympics, Shannon, in 2002 in Salt Lake, I didn't get to see you compete, but I was there and I had Olympians photos and autographs on my wall for years. And that's what inspired me to become a professional athlete too. Didn't make it to the Olympics, but that was the goal.
But you worked just as hard and did all of the things. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Winter Olympics is always a really special time for me too as a fan, but I can imagine it's even more so for you all having competed in quite a few of them yourselves. And to get into that, Doug, can you tell us what inspired you to become an Olympian? Was it something you'd always known you wanted to do?
So I fell in love with skiing right off. My whole family skied, and so I love being outside, and it was super fun. But I don't know if I was born with this competitive bug, but all of a sudden the competition aspect of skiing just started to grow in me. But I'll tell you what, when I grew up at Middlebury Snow Bowl, a little teeny ski area in Vermont, there was an Olympian there, Bill Beck. He was in the 1956 Olympics, and he just hung out, and he was known as the Olympian. And that got me just, what's an Olympian? Like, what are the Olympics? And the more I knew about them, and I'm getting chills right now, it's just like that became my life, my inspiration, my goal was to see how far I could go. And if how far I went was to the top at the Olympics, that's where I wanted to be. So early on, like 7, 8 years old, I wanted to be an Olympian. And if you asked me then, I would have said, yep, I'm going to the Olympics.
And you made it happen. Shannon, what about you?
Oh, I was first inspired by Kristi Yamaguchi, the figure skater. I will never forget watching her in the Olympics, like gliding across the ice, just so elegant and so amazing with this like huge smile and this sparkly outfit and her leg like above her head, just around the rink. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, that's what I want to do. And of course, like, we didn't really have any ice skating and we didn't, I was not very graceful. So when I joined the freestyle team, I saw Donna Weinbrecht win. I'm like, oh my gosh. So she's just as beautiful. She's just as strong. She's just as charismatic. And I could do that. If I could be good at this sport, then I could go to the Olympics in mogul skiing. So it started with Kristi Yamaguchi, went to Donna Weinbrecht, and then I grew up with Johnny Mosley. So watching him win gold in '98 with my team was just like bananas. If a guy from where I grew up, where I skied from my club could go and win a gold medal, like that was it. I wanted to do it. So inspired by a lot of people.
That's so interesting that you both had access to Olympians, or you just had known about them, or you found those role models. And I think that's so important today to inspire that next generation. So it's fun to see that it's still happening. And even if it's not the same sport, you're still getting inspired.
100%. I just think, you know, when you find that person that just connects to you, right? Connects to your soul, you're like, yeah, that speaks to me. Like that level of competition, that grace, that work ethic, you know, that is something that I just saw and wanted to be a part of.
And I know we're going into the Milan Olympics right now, and there's so many different forms of skiing. Shannon, can we dive into freestyle a little bit? And what does that mean? You mentioned moguls. Doug, earlier you mentioned dual moguls. Can you kind of break down the lingo for us? And then Doug, you can share a little bit more about what downhill skiing is like.
Yeah. So for the first time ever, so when I competed way back in the day, we did two different sports. We did single moguls, which is just one competitor at a time, judges at the bottom. You have to have the best run going for gold. And dual moguls is actually two people going side by side down the same mogul course, competing against one another. So judges are still at the bottom, but instead of having to beat all of the other skiers in the competition, you only have to beat the person going next to you. So I got to compete in both of those events on the World Cup circuit. Singles was an Olympic event, but duals was never an Olympic event. And for the first time, duals is going to be in the Olympics. So our mogul skiers have the amazing opportunity to win 2 Olympic medals in these games, which is going to be really fun. And duals is just the most exciting because they are going so fast right next to one another. When they go off the jumps, they're going off them almost at the same time. Sometimes they can collide in the air. And then when they land, as fast as they can go down the middle section. And so it is just one of the most incredible things to watch. And I just cannot wait for the rest of the world to see it.
That sounds exhilarating and a little scary that they might collide midair, but I guess for the drama, yeah.
You got to love the drama, right?
Exactly. And my brain obviously always goes to golf. I feel like singles is stroke play where you're just going based on time and individual performance, but the duels is like match play and you work, is it a bracket system as you work your way to the top then?
Exactly. I always describe it in tennis format. It's like a tennis format. You got the brackets and then you beat out that person and then you make it to the next bracket. So that's exactly what it is until you have the final 2 pairing in the gate. So it's really exciting. And our team is so good right now. Like our girls are just on fire. They can sweep the podium. And not only are they amazing athletes, but they are just so genuinely good humans that my heart is really happy for them.
I love to hear that. I can't wait to watch them. And one last question on this topic is, now that they're going head to head with people, do you think these skiers are studying each other more? Are they sticking to their own game plans and their own course paths? How do you think the strategy changes now with dual moguls?
Oh, the strategy changes a lot. You know, Jalen Koff, who is just one of my favorite skiers, she is the fastest on tour. So hands down, she is the one to beat on time. So you have to change your strategy. You know, that is going to be a portion of the score. And so you kind of have to maybe go a little bit faster, leave some of the clean skiing behind to be able to beat her in time and have a chance to win overall. So absolutely, you know what the strengths and weaknesses are of each athlete, and you have to be better on that run, on that day against them to advance. So really exciting.
I can't wait to watch. And I know, crazy how the game's evolving or the sports are evolving. Downhill skiing, can you give us an overview of that skill set and what your goals are when you're trying to race down that mountain?
Sure. Alpine skiing probably originated going from the top of the mountain to the bottom, but there are 5 events. We'll start with the slalom. That's the slowest at averages 35 miles an hour, which is not slow at all. There's lots of gates, lots of turns, and that takes about a minute to get down. Then you move up to the giant slalom. The average speed there is 45 to 50 miles an hour. You travel about 1.5 miles. Super G, they added in 1988. This is a little bit faster than giant slalom, so the average speed is 55 miles an hour. And then downhill, where what I was, the screw loose or the screw too tight athletes, is from the top of the mountain to the bottom, you average 60 miles an hour. Fastest I've ever been clocked is just over 90 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
So it's really you against the mountain, against the clock. There's other competitors that you're trying to beat, but if you can beat that mountain is what it's all about. And a big difference between Shannon and I, or moguls and alpine, is that I can ski as ugly, I can ski as out of control. My arms can be flying all over the place. It's all about time. There is no judging, and thank God for that, because I was kind of an ugly, crazy skier, but a fast one.
Wow.
That's the only difference, Doug. The other difference is you guys have to wear these silly tight suits, and we do not have to wear that.
Yes, get used to leotards for men. Yes.
I was always so thankful. I was like, oh my gosh, they got to put on these little suits. And if it's like 20 below,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm from California. I love the sunshine. I love the warmth. And I can put on as many jackets as I want and be warm. And they like had to strip it all down. So that is the other thing that I couldn't do alpine skiing for.
So side note, you always want the advantage. So we thought, hey, skin to win, wear nothing under your downhill suit. Well, we learned very quickly that you get frostbite in places you do not want to get frostbite. So wear as many clothes under those skin tight suits as possible.
Oh gosh. Well, hopefully neither of you have frostbite. And I have to ask, how are both of your knees? I mean, that must be so tough on your body, training for years and competing for years.
Shannon can start because she's had some scars.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of injuries, and I've had an ankle surgery, shoulder surgery. I broke my jaw. I came in short on a backflip and landed right on my poles and broke my jaw. I thought I broke my neck, so that was a real win. And then I had 3 really big knee surgeries. So, you know, it's all part of the game. But the one thing that I always tell athletes that are injured is I don't think that I would have ever been the athlete that I am today, and at the end of my career, had I not had any of those injuries. Like, they helped me dig deep. They helped me find a new gear and a new me that I never knew that I had. Felt emotions way stronger. And I think that when I had so many lows, when I was able to, you know, slowly claw my way back and then start to feel success again, it was just an unbelievable feeling because you had come so far. So I'm always thankful for all of the injuries that I had. And yeah, it made me the athlete that I am today, for sure.
It's an incredible mindset. And I can see when we talk later about mental toughness, I can see exactly where you're drawing your inspiration. And Doug, did you have to deal with any injuries as well?
I can say, knock on wood, that I have no scars on my body from any surgeries. And that's unheard of. I've never met someone who spent 8 years on World Cup downhill, especially with no knee injuries. But my first World Cup downhill, I was 17. I caught an edge, crashed, and the first thing I hit was a chairlift tower at about 50 miles an hour and broke my back. So I broke T11, 12, L1, and 2 right in the middle of your back. Very lucky, very unlucky, but very lucky, no lasting effects. And as Shannon said, it teaches you so much. Being injured, having this passion of yours taken away, and it was taken away at age 17, and kind of so new to it that it really affected me. And I made sure I came back changed physically. I was stronger, I was heavier, but more importantly, mentally. Now I knew what I could lose, and it really fired me, motivated me. And everyone I've talked to has learned so much. It's a nightmare to get injured, but you learn from it as an athlete.
I can definitely relate to that. And switching to a more positive note.
That is a positive note,
It
girl.
is.
Okay.
It's positive to reframe the injuries for sure. But more positive memories, I should say, than maybe some of those negative ones. Doug, what was it like making the U.S. ski team for the first time and then competing in 2 different Olympics?
Amazing. Like, as I said, I had this dream at age 7, at age 8. I wanted to be on the U.S. ski team. I wanted to race the Olympics. And I just remember my first camp, it was at Squaw Valley, which is Palisades now. And I was 16, and I couldn't believe the excitement, the joy, the butterflies being named to the US ski team and getting that first coat. And that coat represented, it seems silly, but that coat represented so much work, so much effort, so much sacrifice. And I was so proud, and I'm still so proud to wear the red, white, and blue of the US ski team. But it's amazing. And that's one thing we can talk about. Making the ski team is just the first step, right? Because your ultimate goal is to be the top step of the world. But that big step that should happen early, I hope, in your career, is to get named on that ski team. It changed my life. And I still am so happy to have had those years on the ski team with my teammates. Amazing.
You mentioned that's just the first step. What's the ladder after that? I think a lot of us actually don't know. It's like once you're on the ski team, in my mind, you're going to the Olympics.
No, getting named to the ski team is an amazing part, but it's just that first step. You're now just the best in the US. And for athletes who are committed to being the best, that's just the first step. The next is, now can I compete against the world? And now you're part of this team with the same goal, the same motivation, and you're pushing each other and lifting. And that next 4 or 5, it could be 10 steps, it could be 3 steps, is getting to the top of the world. And a lot of kids get that US ski team jacket and I've made it. That's only the first step. You got to think bigger than that.
Is that where the World Cups come in, the World Championships, the national championships? Is that where you can kind of find your place and make your mark on the sport until the Olympics?
Yeah, it's different than collegiate sports. Collegiate sports plays a role in that stepping stone to the Olympics. But in ski racing, you make the national team and then you go to NORAMs, then you go to Europe and compete, and then you get to the World Cup, and then you get to the Olympics. So there's still a lot of ladder to climb after you get that first US ski team coat.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't know that when you make the ski team, there's only a handful of those people on the ski team that actually get to compete on World Cup. So you have to be one of, or at least for our sport, I think it's the same for yours, Doug, but only the top 4 or 5 women get to compete in the World Cup circuit. The rest of them are on the lower circuit trying to get their spots to be able to compete on the World Cup. So a lot of people think, wow, you make the ski team, that's great, but we actually have to compete for our spots multiple times a year. You may be skiing really well in the summer, they give you a World Cup start, and then you just ski horrible. And somebody on the tour below skis great. Now you've switched places. And so that happens several times a year. And then from those World Cup teams is where they choose the World Championship teams from, and then where they choose the Olympic team from. So it's, unless you're on that US ski team, that first stepping stone, you won't be able to make it to World Championships or to the Olympics.
And you've both obviously lived these transitions and these different competitions. Does the ski team help educate the younger skiers through this and help them navigate those steps to try to make the Olympics? Or is it learning from people who have done it before and older teammates that have more experience?
Well, when I made it onto the ski team, I didn't realize I just thought, man, well, I've made it. But really on the ski team, it's also a difference in funding. So if you're on the C team, and I think it's different for Alpine versus moguls, but when we were on the C team, you got no funding. You paid your own way, whether you were training, whether you were competing, you paid your own way. If you were on the B team, which is, I think you have to be ranked, it's all world ranking, then a little bit more of it was paid for. But even on the A team, they never paid us. It was always just paying for our coaching, paying for our travel, paying for, our meals and stuff while we were there, but we never got paid from the ski team. So you had to have that certain world ranking. And I felt really lucky when I made it onto the ski team. I had a couple really good competitions my first year and made it onto the A team. And then until I retired in 2010, I was a member of the A team. So that was really great because all that was paid for, but never any money.
Oh, yeah. No, I asked because when I turned pro in golf, I was like, okay, I made it. I'm a professional golfer. And then through rooming with girls on the road, I realized, you have to do Monday qualifiers. Like, this is how Q school works. This is how you move up to get to the actual LPGA. It's not just a I can sign up for an event and be on the LPGA. So I was just curious if there's some education on your side where that could like help you get there.
And I didn't answer your question. So
oh, that's okay.
when you make it onto the ski team, you're just so excited to be there. And then once they kind of give you like, here's what you need to qualify to make it to World Championships, and here's what you have to qualify to actually make it to World Cup, then you kind of start to realize what's going on and what happens. So I think it's just kind of learning as you go, because maybe the first year you don't make it isn't a World Championship year or an Olympic year. So you're only fighting for your World Cup start. So it's kind of a trial by error and talking to your teammates and finding out, what is the best way to make it to all of the competitions and what do you have to do in order to do that.
And now, unfortunately, probably with Shannon and for sure with me, you just got on the ski team and you learned by trial by fire. Now if you make the ski team as a 16, 17-year-old, they bring you to this COE in Park City. They have seminars on this is how coaching will work. Here's how sponsors would work. Here's how to talk to television. They have, and they are building this educational system to give these young athletes at least a step ahead learning, because it's all new and it's all crazy. So I bet that's happening in other NGBs, other sports, but the ski team is starting to build that good education for those young newbies.
Amazing. And making it as a teenager, how does that feel? I mean, is that a lot of pressure? There's obviously a lot of excitement. Is being a teenager who makes the team a normal thing? Like for gymnastics, everyone's pretty young when they qualify. What was that like in the ski world, Doug?
Yeah. So I made the ski team at 16 and was totally clueless, and it was all excitement. And my parents and I stumbled and had to ask questions. It was just so new, but I was lucky because I got on the ski team with a big group of like 15 people, and we were all kind of the same age. So we all worked together. We were all fired up. We had this team that really supported each other, and I was really lucky. I don't think that happens a lot. But making it is just like, I remember, as I said, getting that first coat that said US ski team on it and saying, this is just a stepping stone. I was looking forward, and it was most exciting. There was tough times through my 6 to 8 years through the ski team, happy times, sad times, tough times. But I just remember being so excited that I had taken that big step and made my first goal.
And Shannon, you were a teenager as well?
I made the team. I think I was either still 17 or just 18. And I made it with not very many rookies. Like, I was definitely the loud, like obnoxious young girl, coming onto the scene. And I'll never forget Ann Patel, who was ranked #1 in the world. She is just like somebody I looked up to so much. And she just was like, oh my God, who is this girl that like just made the team? And I forgot we just came from a team where we shared everything, right? We didn't have enough resources. So like, you bring the sunscreen, I'll bring the water, we just always shared everything. And I'll never forget the first World Cup that I was on. I was like, hey, Ann, I forgot my sunscreen. Can I borrow some? And she's like, no, you can't borrow some. You need to figure out how to remember to bring your own. You're on the US ski team now. You need to figure it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever told me that. So she set the tone for how it was to be professional, how it was to make sure that you had your own stuff, that you didn't forget things, that it was a new level and you needed to step it up. And in order to win, you had to play by those rules. So at the time it was really harsh, but I'm so thankful for her because it allowed me to understand what it means to wear the US ski team jacket and how you have to go about presenting yourself and doing that. So it was harsh, but great.
Funny how that happens.
I want to add in. So I was lucky enough to get on the ski team when Phil and Steve Mayer, gold and silver medalists in the Olympics, were on there. And Phil took me down every downhill course you get to inspect before you go down. And here's a guy 6 years older than me. Took me down, said, this is where you need to be. This is what happens here. I was so lucky to have a mentor on the ski team that took me under his wing and taught me the World Cup culture. And I vowed that I would pay that back. And I tried to be that as a veteran on the ski team to bring Tommy Moe and say, this is what it's like to run World Cup. And you're going to make mistakes, but here's at least some secrets so you don't make them all like I did.
That's incredible. GalwayPlus is the proud sponsor of the Sports Umbrella. GalwayPlus Sports and Entertainment is the first of its kind platform in the wealth and risk management sectors designed to cater to the diverse needs of affluent individuals, teams, leagues, and organizations operating within the sports and entertainment industries. Learn more at GalwayPlus.com. Shannon, do you want to kick us off talking about your Olympic experience? I know you competed at 3 and you medaled in 2. Can you just tell us how amazing that must have been?
You know, I felt so incredibly lucky to be able to compete in our home country, you know, at Salt Lake City in 2002. And it was just to be able to be handed an Olympic uniform, to be able to wear it, to be an Olympian is the greatest honor that an athlete can ever have. And it was the most incredible experience that I've ever had. And to win America's first medal on home soil at Deer Valley, where I still have the pleasure of working and I get to go by champion every day that I want to, it was something that I'll never forget. But I was 21 in those Olympics. And so I feel like, gosh, everything, you know, up until that point was just like effort in, results out, you know, and all the effort that I put in, the results were coming. And so I felt just like everything was right for those Olympics. But over the next 8 years, you know, to be able to compete in 2006, I always tell people that was my golden year, even though I didn't win a medal, because I made it after a year and a half of injuries when our sport was changing the most. Like we were now allowed to flip and like do backflips and moguls. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So being injured during that time, being able to make it back to those Olympics and represent my country for a second time was huge. And then winning a bronze medal in Vancouver with one of my teammates who won gold, you know, to have 2 Americans on the podium. And after everything that I fought for, being one of the oldest women on the team at 29, was something that I am incredibly proud of. I walked into 3 opening ceremonies, the friends that I made, you know, the inspiration that I have with all of those people. And yeah, it's something I'm so extremely proud of. And I just love the Olympics and watch it, be in it, just be a part of it, all of it.
And in Vancouver, your brother was also competing in the Olympics. Is that right, Scotty?
Yes. So my little brother made it into those Olympics as well. One of his teammates actually got appendicitis. And so Scotty was able to step in and compete for him. So to be able to walk into, you know, a ceremony with my brother as 2 Olympians, it was just him and I growing up. That was something that I'll never forget. So to be siblings in one Olympic Games was really special.
Very special. And do you think you just have an Olympic gene in your family? I mean, how does a family produce 2 Olympians? We don't see it very often.
You know, what's really funny is my parents are both from LA and had no idea even really what snow or skiing was. So when they moved up to Tahoe, you know, they were like, well, what do we do here in the winter? And they learned how to ski and then taught my brother and I. So the fact that they never knew how to ski until they were well into their 20s and 30s is pretty remarkable.
And Doug, you said you had siblings as well.
I definitely grew up in a athletic family. My mom was a ski instructor, hence I got to spend every day since I was 2 years old up just fooling around on the hill, whether I was playing in the river or actually skiing. But yeah, and I had 3 siblings, younger brother, older brother who had a target on his back. So every race, everything I did was to try to beat my brother, and my older sister. But yeah, I grew up in a family that was all skiers and all outside all the time in Vermont.
Wow. And what was your Olympic experience like? You also went to 2 games. What
Yeah,
did that mean to you?
amazing. I had 2 very different experiences. I was in 1984 Olympics in a place called Sarajevo. Yugoslavia is not even a country anymore. In 1984, it was USSR. It was behind the Iron Curtain. There was just so much politics and craziness that I knew nothing about, but that's what was going on. But I had very different experiences. I had a private Olympics in Sarajevo and a very public commercial Olympics in 1988 when they were in Canada. But I just learned so much in my first Olympics. I was 20 years old, probably the youngest one on the Olympic team, on the ski team by 2 or 3 or 4 years. But I was on an Olympic team in 84 that had 5 medalists. My roommate, Bill Johnson, won the gold. Phil and Steve went gold and silver in slalom. Debbie Armstrong won gold and Kristen Cooper won silver in GS. So I learned so much. I learned also that I was not prepared mentally to be at the Olympics. For example, our downhill start was at the top on the roof of the lodge at the top of the mountain. So they built a lodge and the starting gate was on the roof and we skied through the lodge in a tunnel out onto the ski area. Oh. So imagine, it's my first Olympics, I'm 20, I'm standing in the starting gate and everybody else on the roof is one of my heroes. So I'm super nervous. You look down one row through this tunnel and there are all windows and that was the press corps. So it was cameras, people looking at you, binoculars, all that pressure. One story below that, above the tunnel, was the restaurant. So people are eating eggs and cheese and just looking at you weird and you got to ski right under them. And then in this dark little hole was this ski run that you went through. That's just one example of I was mentally not ready. I was so nervous.
I don't know if anyone's ready for that.
I learned so much, whether it was seeing my teammates win, whether it was standing on the roof of the lodge, whether it was the opening ceremonies. And I just learned so much mentally that a year later, I won my medal at the World Championships. And I was so glad that I had that first experience at the Olympics because physically, technically, I was ready, but mentally, I was not ready for the Olympics. It just blew me away.
And how did that prepare you for your second Olympics? You said it was a lot more public that time, which probably means a lot more mental training was needed for that.
So no press came to Sarajevo, no commercial came because it was behind the Iron Curtain. So it was like private Olympics. And we hung out in the athletes' village. I just made amazing friends. It was very low key. 4 years later, it was in Calgary, Canada, which is basically the US, and it became all about commercial, all about the television, Eddie the Eagle, Tomba going out with Katarina Witt. All the things I remember were not about skiing and sports in Calgary because it was just a change in the social aspect of the world at that point. But I broke my collarbone 5 weeks before the Olympics in Calgary. I raced with a broken collarbone, but again, I didn't win a medal, but again, it was an amazing experience, but just different.
Wow. And competing through an injury, always so admirable. Yeah, I know we're going to see some Olympians doing that, I'm sure, again this month. So
the good thing about a collarbone, you really don't need it.
Interesting. And I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah, I beg to differ on that, Doug. I think we do need it. We do need it. Yeah, especially the way you skied, right? You needed that collarbone.
And Shannon, I heard that you have an interesting story on sort of the financial side of funding your way to the Olympics. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I'm so thankful for the way that I grew up. My parents didn't have a ton of money, but always made it happen, right? They were never pushy parents, but if I qualified for something, they figured out a way how to get me there. It wasn't always the most conventional. I actually, when I was little, it was kind of a big thing to go up to Whistler and be in all the summer camps, to be able to pay for those summer camps. And I could never afford that. So my parents were like, well, what if, we could get you a season's pass and then you could train on the courses that all the camps were on after they were done for the day when it was too slushy and, not good conditions. Maybe you could train there and then maybe you could meet some friends and maybe they could coach you when you were up there. So I moved with like 8 boys, which I just cannot believe. Like, mom, seriously? But I lived with 8 guys in Whistler. And we all coached one another on the lanes. They didn't know this at the time. Like, they would leave and then we'd come and ski the course and then slip it at the end of the day and leave it like, in perfect conditions. So we always made it happen. And then, as I said before, we never got paid on the ski team, but we did have some incredible opportunities. Charles Schwab had an internship that we could do. And so I worked for Charles Schwab for a couple years. And I was just so thankful to be able to have a job. And then I also worked as part of the Home Depot team when they were a sponsor of the Olympic team. So it was great. I worked in the paint department. I was mixing paint, and people, all these contractors would come in yelling at you. And then they'd be like, wait a minute, we heard you're an Olympian. And I'm like, yeah. So be a little nicer, all right? And it doesn't matter if I'm an Olympian or not an Olympian. You should treat people better. You should not yell at all the people at Home Depot. So I have a soft spot for all of those people at Home Depot. But, I made it work. I made all my dreams. I needed to find, as I was going through my career, I needed to find people that were in my corner. So I had to pay different athletic trainers, different sports psychologists, and I had to find a way to do that. So I feel like if there's one word that describes me, it's gritty. And that's how my financial situation was going through the Olympics, or in my, US ski team career, it was gritty.
Mm-hmm. It's what you have to do. And people are still doing it now, especially from what I've seen in the golf space. We've all been through it too. And a lot of what we're doing at Fairway to Green is trying to shine more eyes on these athletes' stories, and not only to get them a bigger fan base, but also hopefully get them some sponsors as well. Do you think if sports media in general were doing a better job selling the World Cups and the World Championships and skiing to fans every year versus, every 4 years we talk about skiing? I feel like because the Olympics, the gymnastics was the same thing. Do you think we could be doing a better job storytelling year round for skiing?
I think the biggest thing is that the media focuses too much on the stars, and the stars are amazing. They have amazing stories, but just under there are such interesting athletes, and they all, like Shannon and I and you, have a different path filled with different struggles. And I love hearing about these athletes that overcome struggles, or parked in the parking lot of Mammoth every summer and just hiked their way up there. Everyone has a story, and those stories are so inspiring. And yes, the best in the world have amazing stories, but under there are just amazing. So I think just broadening the scope of the stories that we tell, and just not the famous ones, dig a little deeper, and amazing, inspiring stories are to be found.
And I really think, mainstream media they do focus so much every 4 years, but I wish that people would help some of the athletes with their own personal story. Like, how do they tell it on their own platforms, right? Like, it's great whenever NBC or, who like puts all these things out, but like, how can they help athletes tell their story a little bit better through their own lens? I mean, I have a horrible social media following, and it takes a lot of time. It takes somebody that really knows how to do it. And I wish that people would help athletes. Now, on another aspect of that, I'm so glad that I didn't grow up in the generation of social media. I got to focus on my sport. I got to be me. I just got to focus on what I needed to do great during that day. How could I execute my hands, my knees, my core? That's what I focused on. And I feel like athletes now, you have to be in the starting gate, showing everybody behind the scenes and what it's like. And, it's not just about your athletic performance anymore. It's about letting people into your life. And I think that's distracting. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think we need, as Doug said, more stories about all of the athletes, because they're so incredible. Some people just barely making it to the Olympics have such a touching and profound experience that people want to know about. And then when they know about it, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm cheering for that person. So that would be fun. And then, just helping everybody shine their best in the times when it's not the most important.
I agree. And Doug, you've done some sports broadcasting as well for the Olympics and for some of these other championships. Are you going to Italy this Olympic season for the Winter Games?
I turned down an opportunity to be over in Bormio to announce the live because I wanted to give that to a different person, give that opportunity. And I just am so excited to be a fan. Like, I'm going to be up at 3:30 watching the training runs. I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and watch these things. I want to be a fan and see the athleticism, the struggle, the medal winners, but also the ones that have those tough days, because I know what it's like to struggle and have that dream, quote unquote, crushed. But as long as these athletes, I want to see them push their limits, because that's what the Olympics are about. How close to perfection, riding that fine line between control and catastrophe. I want to see that happen in front of me and appreciate every one of them.
Olympians are so brave. I don't know. I always said if it wasn't golf, I'd be skiing. But now talking to you two, I don't think I ever would have been an Olympic skier.
Oh, Kelly, you got it, girl. You got it.
Like, maybe if I grew up with somewhere with snow. I was in Florida.
Have that lizard brain memory. No memory at all. Just, today's a new day.
I have enough concussions for that. So it's probably...
See, you're good to go.
I'm already there. Yeah. If you could choose an Olympic sport that's happening right now that wasn't skiing to be participating in, which sport would you choose?
Easy. Well, it's not another winter sport because, girl, I've done enough snow and ice and cold. So for me, it would be beach volleyball. I love it. I just love it so much. I mean, they wear like cute little bikinis and they are just so awesome and so inspiring, and they can jump, like the vert is so high, and then just like smack the ball as hard as they can into somebody else. Like, I just love it. I love it so much. And they can like dive and, dive into the sand and then get back up and hit it over. It's awesome. I love it so much. So for me, beach volleyball.
Same here. What about you, Doug?
I would like to be on a team sport in the Olympics. I just think I wanted more of that camaraderie, trusting your teammates, picking them up and leaning on them, because I was in an individual sport and I think it's really different. So it's not a new sport, but I would love to have been a soccer player in the Olympics and on a team where we could just gel and do our best together.
I can relate to that as well.
I have a funny story about that. So when I met all the Team USA hockey players in 2002, they were so much fun. We just vibed. I was like, okay, you guys are my people. Like, you ladies rock. And I was like, okay, so can I be like an honorary hockey member? So when you guys win, I can go in and jump on the dog pile too. Like, can I do that? That's just what I want. I don't want to have any part of the skating and the puck scoring, but just the dog pile at the end. Can I please do that?
Did they say yes?
They said yes, but unfortunately security and all the things said no. So
yeah.
They saw my soul. They wanted me to be a part of that.
Yes. And switching gears a little bit to what you're all up to today and what you did after the Olympics. Shannon, I know you've mentioned before, after 2010, starting to feel a little lost after you stopped competing. Why do you think so many Olympians and professional athletes in general feel that way after they retire from a sport?
Because it's your identity. It's the thing that you've been working for your whole life. Every cell in your body has the same goal. And that goal is to make it to the Olympics, to win, to be the best that you can be, to every day find a way to make yourself better. And all of a sudden you don't have that. And I think that's really confusing. That's really embarrassing is a word too, like that you are so good at something and all of a sudden you don't quite know where you fit in. And I think, it's just hard because you kind of feel like you're alone. Even though you're not alone, you feel alone. And to be able to admit that you don't know what's next and that you don't have the same confidence in yourself that you did is a really scary feeling. So for me, when I retired in 2010, I retired after 2 Olympic medals. I retired the way that I wanted to retire. I retired, in a couple months, I was going to get married, and I had started up a coffee roasting business. And so I was going to have like this easy entrance into my what's next. And it was great for about a year. And then that started to crumble. I realized when my teammates left to go to Zermatt to train again, and there were all these new rookies on the team, and the team was still going without me. That was a really hard battle to fight in my head too. It's like, they don't actually miss me. Like, this is a ship that keeps on sailing. And that's kind of a year later when it really started to unravel for me. And I felt even more embarrassed at that point, right? Because you're further along, you should be more in tune with what you're doing. So it's a really scary time. And I wish that, athletes could kind of know what that's like before, so that they can navigate that a little bit better. And I know that people are really trying to help, right? When you're after, like, they're trying to do job summits and different things, but you just don't know what that's like until you're there. Mm-hmm. So that's the really scary part for athletes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Doug, what was the transition like for you?
Not great. Not great. As Shannon said, you lose your identity. You are this person who wakes up every day committed to one goal. And then all of a sudden you go from the pages of Sports Illustrated to nothing, like really nothing. I was a freshman, a 26-year-old freshman at UVM going to class. And I couldn't figure out who I was. And everybody's like telling me to go into finance, do this, do that, right? And I couldn't move. I couldn't figure out who I was. And you just need time. And there's help out there for sure, but you need time to figure out who you are, because your whole life is a ski racer. And now, where are you? And so I tried to listen to my heart. It took 2 years, but I tried to listen to my heart. And I just wanted to work with kids. I just wanted to inspire and educate kids and give them the tools that I didn't have. And that route took me to elite team, where we focus on sports physiology, sports psychology, and nutrition. It took me to meet Shannon, and we have this company called Champions Advantage, where we're giving these athletes all that we learned. So to go back to your question, I don't think it could be easy. There's more help out there for athletes now, but when you lose who you are, it's gonna be hard. And it was really hard for me for 2 years.
Yeah, similar with golf. I was always golf girl, so I knew that well. But I think something we all did was took that passion and figured out a way to pay it forward in different ways. And Shannon, you also have Team Empower Hour too. And I think it's really great that you both started your own companies and now you're partnering on a new one. So Shannon, would you mind telling us a little bit more about Team Empower Hour first before we dive into Champions Advantage?
Yeah. So I created Team Empower Hour for a couple different reasons, because I love sharing my story. I love sharing my lens of success with people. And I didn't have the capacity in my heart to be a coach yet, right? Like, I just wasn't there. But I could talk to people and I could share my stories and I could, tell them what it was like to do different things. And then I thought, well, what if we could get people active too? So I brought in a team building aspect, to have that team that Doug was talking about that we're not a part of. I'm like, I want to be part of team too. So I created this company and we only hire Olympians. So that was a way that I could give back to those athletes that were hurting just as much as I was hurting. I want to be able to pay them, to allow them to make money, and to be able to still have that piece of them that can talk about their journey. So that's why I created Team Empower Hour, and we share our success with corporate America. But as my kids started to get older, so I've got Tucker, who's 7, and Zoe, who's 12, and they're into sports. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're having to navigate so much. And there's not really very many options for them to understand what failure is and how you move through it and how you get through the hard times. And so it's funny because Doug and I just met Doug and instantly was like, oh my gosh, you're one of my favorite people in the world. And I knew how passionate he was about helping kids. And he has this amazing camp called Elite Team. But a part of that camp is mental toughness and mental skills. And I've been trying to recruit him for Team Empower Hour. And he's like, Shannon, no. And I'm like, okay, but what about this company? Could we do this? Could you say yes to this? So, 2 years ago, I think, or a year and a half ago, we said yes to Champions Advantage. And we are, equipping youth sports teams all over the country with mental skills. So I think, we recognize that was the game changer for us. That was the thing that took us to the top, that made us, compete under pressure and perform better, were those mental skills. So that it's just been so much fun to work together and really discover what was most important in our careers. Like, what was the most important thing, and how can we, give that to athletes and create that and give them the inspiration on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly. So it's been really fun. And it's the legacy that I know I want to leave. And I know Doug is already leaving his legacy with his elite team. And hopefully now it can be this one too.
And Doug, is this a complimentary offering for your elite team, or is Champions Advantage now integrated into everything you offer?
I think it's an additional for sure. Elite team's a little bit younger. We focus on 11 to 14-year-olds. I just love that age. They'll do anything. They're into anything. They like to struggle. They like to compete, and they like to learn. So that's elite team, and Champions Advantage is like the next step. It's for maybe 11 to 18-year-olds. But just getting back to the importance and our passion, Shannon and my passion is coming into the Olympics, right? The Olympics are this week, and there's, just talk about ski racing, there's probably 12 to 15 athletes who could land on the podium, right? They all ski amazing. They've done that work. They all eat the right things. They all are super strong and flexible and powerful. They all get the right sleep, right? Everything's the same. The higher you get, these athletes are very similar in all technical aspects. But what's the difference? Who's going to win this Saturday or next Sunday? It's the one that has the strength, the most training between their ears. It's the mental aspect. And I know I wasn't the favorite when I won my medal. Shannon, I don't think you were ranked number 1 going in. So Here's living proof that missing aspect, the mental skills, is really what determines champions. Whether you end up on the top at the Olympics or at the NCAA level or at a junior level, if you want to perform your best, that's the key. And I just love turning on kids to finding those skills and working on those skills.
It's hard because I think, Doug and I learned these skills. I learned these skills when I was 21. And gosh, how far I could have gone, how much more I could have accomplished, I think, had I known that they were, had I known them when I was littler. But I think kids nowadays are dealing with so much more than we ever had to deal with, right? They've got pressure from parents, from coaches, from year-round training. They've got burnout issues. They've got the recruiting process. They've got NIL. Like, there is so much that these athletes are dealing with besides performance, right? Besides that. And so our program is just giving them the opportunity to be able to cut through the noise and to be able to focus, to be able to understand what those things look like and how you can navigate that through. So we get so excited to see how all of our athletes perform, but it also lights us up whenever they're just like, oh my gosh, I love my sport. And I didn't feel that way at the start of the season because I was burned out, and I found the love, right? I found that feeling again. Or, man, I've been feeling so much pressure from my parents, and now I can work through that. Like, I know it's me, and I know that they're them, and this is me, and this is how I need to perform in this moment. So it's really exciting. I love it. We talk about it for hours.
I know. And we have.
Yes, we have.
And I mean, who better to administer those lessons than two Olympians who have faced almost pretty much every obstacle, it sounds like, in sports. So thank you both so much for helping pay it forward, and really for coming on to this podcast today too. I really appreciate hearing both of your perspectives, and what perfect timing with the Winter Games right now. So thank you both so much for coming on the Sports Umbrella.
Thank you for having us. This has been a great
conversation.
I just want everybody to tune in to Cortina. and just be jumping up on the couches just like Doug and I are going to be, because this is going to be a spectacular Olympics. They're going to just incredible performance, feat, over injuries and all, like counting out athletes and performances of a lifetime. It's going to be so fun. So tune in, everybody.
Joining us this episode, presented by GalwayPlus, amidst the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Games, are two former Olympians, Shannon Bahrke and Doug Lewis. Shannon is a 3-time Olympian and 2-time medalist in freestyle skiing, and Doug is a 2-time Olympian and World Championship medalist in downhill skiing. Doug and Shannon both share their experiences from making the U.S. ski team to competing at their own Winter Games, what we can expect to see in their sports in Milan, the importance of mental training, and how they're paying it forward with today's young athletes.